Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Chief Financial Officer Beth Lipson.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Lipson, CFO of Opportunity Finance Network. It is my honor to welcome you all to Chicago and our Small Business Finance Forum. Today, we gather to celebrate the resilience of CDFIs and acknowledge the remarkable growth of the small business CDFI landscape in recent years. This growth is a testament to the hard work, dedication, and unwavering commitment of everyone in this room. The Small Business Finance Forum holds immense importance as it provides a platform for learning, sharing, insights, and fostering collaboration among industry leaders. This event enables us to explore innovative approaches and tackle the challenges facing small businesses and underserved communities. Together, we can drive lasting economic growth, empower small businesses, and create a better future for all. I would like to express our sincere gratitude towards our lead sponsor, JPMorgan Chase & Company. Their unwavering support and partnership with OFN and the CDFI industry have been instrumental in advancing important initiatives such as Advancing Cities and the Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mikhail Quarles. Mikhail is the Managing Director and Head of Diverse Strategies for Chase Business Banking. With his expertise in government and nonprofit banking, lending, and strategic management, Mikhail has been at the forefront of driving positive change. He oversees Chase Business Banking's racial equity commitment, ensuring access to capital, mentorship, and growth opportunities for small business owners. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Mikhail Quarles.
Okay, so first off, before I get started, and I told Beth I was going to do this and she told me I shouldn't. It was her birthday yesterday. Right? So we're not going to sing happy birthday because that was the specific thing she told me we couldn't do. But at least we can give her a round of applause. All right, so thank you to everybody and welcome to Chicago. You know, I am so proud of the work that we are doing at JPMorgan Chase and so proud to be a sponsor and the sponsor for this event. But it's not about the day, right? It's about all of the passion, desire, and capacity that we have as a group to make incremental difference and change in our communities. And that's what excites me the most. And I know that excites you all as well. Now I got to read my actual scripted responses. Okay, so in October of 2020, we did our $30 billion racial equity commitment, and I am extremely proud of the work that we're doing there. And in that racial equity commitment, our small business focus was really about how we make incremental difference for communities that deserve opportunity that they would not have otherwise. And I was actually sitting at my table over there and explaining some of the things that we've done. And most people don't know that we've built a special purpose credit strategy that means that in majority minority communities, we uplift our credit applicants for small business loan applications, and they get better opportunities as a result without any other consideration. They don't know that we require less documentation to take those applications, and in some cases, don't require any documentation at all. They don't know that we, in a lot of cases, make same-day credit decisions. So the day you apply, we also make the decision to approve or not. right? So as we continue to talk about the work that we all need to do, I'm excited to tell those stories. And we committed more than $20 million to OFN's Financial Justice Fund as we continue to think about the ways that we provide impact. And that's actually, I got to spend some time with Harold Pettigrew today, right? The new president and CEO of OFN. And when you connect with someone where you know that your desires, passions, and interests align, it's clear from the moment you interact. And Harold and I have had that connection. I'm really proud to see what he's going to talk about today and the conversation that he's going to have with the SBA Administrator, Isabella Guzman. So I'm going to get off the stage so y'all can actually have the real conversation. Okay, so I want to introduce to the stage Henry Jimenez, a board member of OFN that's going to continue the conversation for today.
Muy buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'm Henry Jimenez. I'm the Executive Director of the Latino Economic Development Center in Minnesota and a proud OFN board member. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Small Business Finance Forum and introduce our lunch plenary conversation that promises to be insightful and impactful. We are grateful for the overwhelming response to this year's forum, which completely sold out with nearly 500 attendees. After 4 years, we're thrilled to be back in person, gathering with mission-driven small business lenders, funders, investors, and partners from across the country. Together, we will learn, connect, and be inspired by the power of entrepreneurship. Our lunch plenary titled CDFIs and the SBA Partners in Promoting Economic Development features small business SBA Administrator Isabella Casillas Guzman, and OFN new President and CEO Harold Pettigrew. I'm going to go off script right here because I just told the Administrator Guzman my quick story. This morning, I got a chance to talk to my 7-year-old Lucia and my 5-year-old Javier, and they asked me, what are you doing today for work? I explained that I was introducing Administrator Guzman. I can tell you right now they had no idea what that means. They just said, have a good day. But I started walking to the hotel and I remembered when I was not too much older than Lucia and thinking someday there's going to be a Latino or Latina as one of the highest ranking administrators in our country. And I can't believe it, but I get to introduce her today. That finally happened. And I'm glad that my daughter will not have to wait till she has no hair like me. But it's just thought you guys will all appreciate how important that is to me and the Latino community, but really all of us across the country to have someone like Administrator Guzman here with us today in her role. And Harold Pettigrew, too, I just feel like he's like a brother to me already. And will tell you that he's been working here for 19 days. I could tell you that he's been at this his whole life. And what an amazing leader we have to lead OFN. They will discuss the crucial role of CDFI loan funds in expanding access to capital, especially for women and entrepreneurs of color. They will share successful initiatives and partnerships developed to support CDFIs in driving economic growth and creating jobs in underserved communities. The conversation will also touch on the SBA's efforts to support small businesses and CDFIs in the post-COVID recovery. I don't even like to say COVID. As we heard from Harold this morning, we are lucky to have Harold leading OFN and the CDFI industry at this critical moment. Administrator Guzman, man, I just love saying it, Guzman. Like I finally can say somebody's last name, folks. Guzman is also somewhat new to her role as she was sworn in as the 27th Administrator of the U.S. Small Business Administration on March 17th, 2021. Throughout her career, Administrator Guzman has dedicated herself to supporting small businesses. She understands the vital role they play in our economy and has worked tirelessly to advance equity and opportunity for all entrepreneurs. Under Administrator Guzman's leadership, the SBA has scaled dramatically, delivering vital relief to millions of small businesses affected by the pandemic, many of them in my community and your community. She leads with a customer-first, technology-forward, and equitable approach aiming to transform the SBA's programs and services to meet the diverse needs of all small businesses. And I just have to say, it's not a coincidence that she's Latina, folks. There's a reason why the SBA has been transformed the last couple of years. It's leadership. I'm thrilled to have Administrator Guzman and Harold Pettigrew engage in this important conversation, and together they will explore strategies, opportunities, and collaborations to drive economic growth and empowerment of entrepreneurs across our nation. Please join me in welcoming Administrator Isabella Casillas Guzman and OFM President and CEO Harold Pettigrew to the stage. Muchas gracias.
Ooh, those lights are bright.
They are bright. Good afternoon, everybody. All right, y'all know we started this morning. Come on. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited, certainly, to have a conversation with the administrator. And we have about 35 minutes, and so I'm going to jump right in because I want to make sure we can spend the most time possible being in conversation, chatting with 500 of our friends. So, Administrator, before we get into some of the wonderful work that you're leading at the SBA, I want to start with just who you are a bit. You have a wonderful background, being the daughter of an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur yourself. Tell us how your background informs your work.
Well, I do think it's foundational. I mean, to have grown up in a small business family, seen my father, struggle. He left Texas, went to Tuskegee Institute to get his doctorate of veterinary medicine, and then went to California to pursue his American dream. But he fought hard. He had a lot of struggles to overcome and to build his chain of veterinary hospitals. And so, I saw firsthand what it takes to run a small business, but also the power of that American dream, the power to build intergenerational wealth in this country. And to be able to now, as the SBA administrator, focus on ensuring that we're deploying those opportunities across our communities equitably is really a dream in and of itself. For all our small businesses that truly are the backbone of our economy, as we like to say, but they really are giants in our economy, creating those jobs and creating communities and innovating. So I think that's really formative for me. It's what inspires me every day to keep going, is truly those small businesses and that experience. But I think also being from a community that is underserved, that has faced challenges and barriers, really gives me my fight. that consistent energy to persist and follow and do what's right for the communities, and thus our programs at the SBA, to make sure that we are transforming them for the future and the future face of entrepreneurship, which we know is increasingly diverse. It's increasingly women who are starting these businesses, and so it's remarkable to be at the helm of the agency that focuses on delivering that American dream of business ownership.
That's wonderful. We talked a little this morning about where we've been over the last couple of years. I've had the pleasure 2 years ago of being with you in Washington, D.C. We had a chance to go into a small business to talk a little bit about where things were then One thing I appreciate about your leadership is that you get out into the community, you get out into neighborhoods, you get out to talk to small businesses. I know you've done that across the country. What are you seeing? How is recovery going right now for businesses across the country, and where do you feel conditions stand?
Yeah. Well, I just want to, recount as well, knowing, I came in the midst of the pandemic, but to note the tremendous economic recovery that we have experienced. I think the numbers speak volumes, and just last week we saw additional news about inflation continuing to cool. We've seen over 13 million jobs created consistently for the last 16 months. We've seen unemployment below 4%. Great markers of our economic progress, the 13 million jobs created as well that I said. But for small businesses in particular, we've seen a boom. And in the first 2 years of the president's term, we've seen 10.5 million new business applications filed. Now it's up to 11.7 million. And as all of you know who have been in this space, we had previously seen a decline in the net businesses that were being created. So to see that reversal, those numbers are 84% higher than any other similar years on record. And so those historical averages, really give you hope for what's happening in the economy. And the president remains strongly committed to his Invest in America agenda, which is about creating opportunities for all. He fights for the hardworking families, which includes those entrepreneurial families who are just trying to achieve that American dream and better the lives of their families. And so as we invest significant funds into infrastructure, we've seen over $200 billion deployed in projects around the country. Those are contracts for small businesses. Those contracts then deploy local workforces and help local community businesses as we build our roads and our bridges and connect communities. And then in addition, of course, in addition to the infrastructure, there's the CHIPS and Science Act, an investment again in Made in America, manufacturing in the USA, and 70% of all manufacturers are 20 employees and under, so the smallest of the small businesses. And so we know that those investments and the over $400 billion that's already been invested by the private sector to match is really going to be transformational for entrepreneurial opportunities. And then in addition, the Inflation Reduction Act that focuses on lowering costs for hardworking families and businesses around healthcare and energy, but also focuses on the clean energy economy of the future. And in terms of what's the challenges on the horizon, this is the good news, the foundation that we have to build on. But obviously the tightening credit environment for our small businesses when capital is king, continued challenges in supply chain, more so while a lot of the disruptions have been addressed. They are still having to hold inventories longer, and it's changing their planning. So still adjusting to that, workplace challenges and trying to get the workforce that they need to deliver and open every day. So these are persistent challenges, and what we're trying to focus on to help empower businesses with the tools and the resources to overcome that disruption, so that the bigger potential risks of cybersecurity threats or climate change that are also looming on the horizon can be moderated when there's disruption. Our businesses need to be prepared and resilient.
And just to pull on that thread a bit, we spoke a little about the focus on climate. And OFN, that'll be a primary pillar which we're focused on in the future, not because of the opportunity only, but because of the threat that we all collectively face. And so we'll come back to climate specifically, but wanted to get your perspective about overall the consistency of disruption. We talk a bit, and to pull the thread that you were just lifting up, the consistency at which some of our communities are experiencing disruption, whether natural because of natural disasters and other climate intensifying events, to elements that are man-made as well. But we know disruption is a constant. Are there some lessons or things that you think we can pull forward from the last 4 years, from the SBA lessons, any insights as well for our room of 500 friends who are all on the ground, lending in communities? Any lessons or insights that you can lift up?
Yeah, I think we saw it early on during the pandemic. The businesses that were connected, that had awareness, and as the president told me the very first time we spoke about this position is, those businesses that didn't have the accountant or the banker or the lawyer on speed dial are at a huge disadvantage whenever there's disruption. And inevitably, it's our underserved communities in particular, but across the board, our small businesses that are just busy in their business, working every day, have a challenge connecting and preparing for the future. The preparedness is a hard thing. So I do think in terms of strengthening our local infrastructure for small business development, that's where we need to double down to make sure that our businesses are aware, which is why the president funded the Community Navigator pilot program within the American Rescue Plan, because we want to rethink how we connect communities to knowledge about entrepreneurship so that we can create more equitable access to our programs, which can really, which have saved millions of businesses. But if you didn't know about it early on, you may not have survived or not have come back as quickly. And so I do think that that's a huge lesson, but also it's just the way businesses operate. So we've doubled down on revenue growth opportunities as well to make sure that businesses can strengthen their cash flow reserves, can strengthen their position. They need to have opportunities to really build sustainable, stable revenue growth. And so the focus in the Biden-Harris administration on using the power of the federal purse to support small businesses with contracts is an example. We want small businesses to have that success. We want small businesses to succeed in the e-commerce marketplace, which is a $5.2 trillion marketplace globally. And so we've launched a Small Business Digital Alliance. And we want small businesses to be able to trade abroad. So ensuring our STEP grants are deployed and that our small businesses can access trade opportunities abroad is really critical towards being able to withstand disruption, because you have a diverse revenue base and you have stable revenue sources and, of course, affordable capital to grow.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you entered into the conversation from exporting to doing work in online business and commerce and things, the diversity of which we know to fill out the ecosystem, all of these pieces are needed, from different opportunities to technical assistance. Just thinking about we're coming off of these last couple of years with PPP. And there are major programs that came through the SBA of innovation, speed, some bumps along the way as well, but certainly ways that CDFIs partnered with the SBA to deploy capital. Any lens or perspective you can provide towards what that partnership was, or insights for what partnership could look like in the future, specifically for CDFIs and the SBA?
I think PPP was an awakening moment, obviously, for us because the SBA scaled, delivering $1.2 trillion in relief. During the president's first year, it was $450 billion that we deployed, plus our spike of $50 billion in our normal programs.
So sorry to interrupt you here.
Those are big numbers.
Go over those numbers one more time, because I think it's
big
often
numbers.
easy to miss the scale at which you guys were operating.
Well, I mean, so approximately we put out, last year it was $44 billion across all of our capital programs, but typically more than $40 billion. We have authority for $50 billion in our core lending programs, another $5 billion in our investment companies. But we scaled to $1.2 trillion in total over the COVID relief programs. In 2021, in the president's first year, we deployed $450 billion in relief with 7 new programs. We had to launch Restaurant Revitalization Fund, Shuttered Venue, as well as PPP, and EIDL and expansion and targeted advance, you name it. We had tons of programs to scale. And we don't get to scale at the federal government in one community. We're equitable, have to scale nationally immediately with equitable access. And so, but that scale, that tremendous reach really taught us multiple lessons. And of course, I mean, it's extensive. We could go down a rabbit hole around management and operational controls and issues like that. But to focus on the lending opportunities and the small businesses that you work with, we recognized that this was a simple product that was easier for the lenders to use and thus the end users, the small businesses, that we scaled with a massive distribution network. We went from 1,500 lenders approximately to over 5,000. And note that 83% of the PPP lenders hadn't done an SBA loan in the previous 2 years. So these are lenders that came back to the SBA to deploy PPP or came to us for the first time. And of course, opening up the program to non-depository institutions, as well as our incredible network of community advantage CDFIs and CDCs, was really critical to ensuring that we could actually reach into diverse communities, underserved communities, and support the smallest of the small businesses, as well as those rural communities or underserved communities. But that tells a story in and of itself. SBA's programs need to be simplified, modernized, transformed to really ensure that we are working with the most lenders possible. And so, clearly that has been the focus of my reform, is trying to take the lessons from PPP to increase the reach of our program so that we can build off of this incredible outreach and awareness of SBA to really transform capital access into communities that you all serve. And so there's incredible learnings from that, but let's hone in on that expansion of the distribution network, because clearly CDFIs were tremendous in partnering with the SBA and ensuring, especially towards the end, that capital got deployed to the smallest of the small businesses, the solopreneurs, as well as women and people of color, rural communities, veterans, and that nearly $30 billion in support that got deployed through CDFIs was really a remarkable testament to the operations that exist and the need to connect to communities through the CDFIs. And so our focus has been on how do we ensure that SBA's networks better reflect how businesses are getting their capital today. We know that 2/3 of businesses who seek capital don't get all of it or any of it, despite their potential credit worthiness. And we know that half of African American business owners go straight online. So we really need to rethink how we deploy SBA's programs to meet businesses where they are and everywhere that they are, which is why my focus on that customer first and technology forward and equitable approach applies to all of my programs. Is that I want to know who the customer is, what they look like, the changing face of entrepreneurship, but as well I want to understand how they're structured, how they operate today, the types of investments that they need to take in to survive, how they have to be structured, and take that into account so that we can create simple programs for lenders of all types to deploy in communities for better access and representation. Truly, I think that what the CDFIs do in communities in terms of connecting from a mission perspective into local trusted partners and helping support, oftentimes through technical assistance, either potentially supported through our microlending TA, but oftentimes through your own investment, supporting businesses to figure out how they can get a loan, how they can get capital ready, as well as how they can deploy most effectively to grow and be able to repay and borrow again in the future for continued growth. So I do think that the model of the CDFI in providing technical assistance for creditworthiness, as well as hand-holding to support a business, is obviously something we have to provide for many businesses and as many as possible at scale.
Absolutely. And you started to talk about certainly some of the programs that you all have, and knowing with this room the importance of one program specifically, Community Advantage. And we know that program has been a pilot. Talk a little bit about just some of the successes of the program.
Yeah, there's great successes. I mean, I think, I was in Minneapolis recently and met with Awash, was with the second gentleman, and we met with Awash Bakery and Adama Restaurant, and they actually are there in existence thanks to the support of a local CDFI. Or I know Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative is in the room, but they had a recent success deploying capital to a dump truck company. Hopefully that means that they can be a part of those contracts in the infrastructure spend. But these are businesses that were unable to get capital elsewhere and that were able to deploy thanks to the existence of the Community Advantage program. Our willingness to go outside in a pilot initiative during the Obama-Biden administration to recruit these mission lenders to deploy 7A authority. And That's behind the regulatory reform that we've deployed at the SBA, and so in particular, the Small Business Licensing Company moratorium lift, which, by the way, the moratorium was put into place in the 80s, the early 80s, when we did everything with pen and paper, when we didn't have our Office of Credit Risk Management, and we obviously, as an agency, weren't ready for that. But we are in a very different position, having been able to scale, deploy. We leverage technology and tools, financial technology and tools, just as many of our large bank partners do, and many of you in the room. And so, the ability to really, focus on making the Community Advantage program permanent was a priority within the Biden-Harris administration. So I was pleased to first roll out reforms with Vice President Harris to take the benefits of Express and the advantages that many of our large lenders have with the technology investments that they make in their systems and deploy it to our Community Advantage lenders with Vice President Harris last year. And so those reforms, and I know I think you were at my event in DC, were you, with Howard University, with Vice President Harris, where we'd rolled out significant reforms to the Community Advantage to simplify access to the program. But our focus was always on the end goal of making it permanent, so that the certainty and the hopefully improved attraction of philanthropic dollars and investment dollars from impact communities could thrive with a permanent program. And so that's been my focus and goal, is to ensure that the CDFIs are a permanent part of my portfolio so that we can continue to serve underserved borrowers. And you do it better. You reach underserved markets better. Within our SBA portfolio, Black founders who have an SBA loan 3 times more likely served under the CDFIs within Community Advantage. And so clearly there's an access issue, and you are helping me solve it. So to be able to ensure sustainability of the CDFI access to the 7-8 portfolio has been a top priority of this administration.
So you hit on what my next question was going to be. Just simply, what were you trying to achieve, right? And so you hit on that. You have lenders here who are looking to participate. Give some perspective of, at least what the outlook of the future and some of the reforms that are underway now. What would you advise for the folks in the room who are looking to participate in the new license program, newly revised Community Advantage program?
Yes.
What perspective would you give?
So our Community Advantage Small Business Licensing Company, the CA-SBLC program, is now readily available. We have 27 so far of our CDFIs already transitioned. So it means they put in their signed Form 750. That represents over 60% of our portfolio in Community Advantage, confirmed now within our Community Advantage SBLC, which gives me great hope for that permanence now that we're in transition. I hope that the rest of you finish your 750 forms and submit them to the SBA so that you can gain permanence with the access to the 7A portfolio. We've made a tremendous amount of reforms to ensure that your experience in Community Advantage translates exactly into the SBLC program, which is why there's a specialized Community Advantage SBLC, so that in terms of your compliance requirements, that they're set to the nonprofit mission focus and aligned with your goals as well. So, I know that Katie Frost, my Deputy Associate Administrator in the Office of Capital Access, is here today and will, I think, be doing a panel in the future, either today or tomorrow, that will focus more on the specifics of the program. But I encourage you, to review the opportunity there. We've simplified our programs with the affiliation regulatory reform that was put forward at the same time as the SBLC, given the advantage that we provided with the SBA Express program to all of our lenders at the SBA. And this is deferring to your underwriting standards, as long as you are holding the same standards on similarly sized loans in your own private portfolio with those of the SBA, making sure that will definitely open up capital opportunities. But in addition, rethinking how we look at businesses and their structure. It's always been about ownership and control. And that's complicated. That's where the eligibility issues come into play. And so we've removed affiliation from eligibility, and we've, in addition, we'll be rolling out new technology with the SBA and our unified lending platform so that we can do that eligibility review for you in an automated fashion, in a streamlined, quick turnaround, as we did during PPP. SBA is now practiced and learned in having to do this, and so we want to make sure that all of our lenders can benefit from the large technology platforms that the big lenders have already deployed for many years. And so we've invested in that technology and hope to see a new SBA, for those of you who haven't used the SBA, and for those of you who have, an SBA that's more streamlined to meet the needs of your small business clients.
That's wonderful. And to go back to an area we talked about before, because I want to make sure we don't run out of time to lift it up. We talked a little bit about climate and significant investments that the Biden-Harris administration are making. And so if you're not directly a climate lender, it is often hard to understand where there may be ways to impact the climate environment. Just give any perspectives you have, because I know you see this on the ground as you've traversed across the country talking to small businesses. What perspective would you provide, again, our group here, just about not only the importance of what's to come, but the significance of the investments that are coming down through the administration?
Yeah, well, we, obviously the Biden administration overall, outside of the SBA, has made tremendous investments in the small business from an investment perspective, both the SSBCI program, the Greenhouse Fund at EPA, and then, of course, SBA's core programs in lending. We hope to lean in heavily in investing in communities for sustainability. Climate change impacts underserved communities and our small businesses more significantly than anyone else. I mean, FEMA studies have shown that if a business doesn't reopen after a natural disaster within 5 days, that they're more likely to close within a year. It's like 80% odds. And small businesses, as we talked about, being ready for disruption, being ready to handle that massive change on their structure is, most of them are not prepared. But so at the SBA, I've approached this issue by reimagining what my Office of Disaster Assistance looks like and my Office of Capital Access. I've now taken the lending out of my Office of Disaster Assistance and moved it to my Office of Capital Access. And so Capital Access always did all of our direct loans in terms of servicing, but now they are also doing the underwriting. So the direct physical disaster damage loans, as well as the EIDL program, now are housed under Capital Access, which gives me the opportunity to invest in my Office of Disaster Resilience and Recovery to better focus on preparedness, but better focus on resilience strategies and deploy the full SBA when there is a disaster so that we can help communities recover more quickly. So I'm excited for the changes within this organization and how we can better leverage our partnerships within Capital Access, so that's our CDFIs, to ensure that we're deploying capital in communities for resilience and for preparedness alongside SBA's great lending programs. We've already hit the $5 billion mark in terms of SBA funding for disaster loans. We've seen, repeated natural disasters around the country really impacting communities, and so want to make sure that our small businesses are prepared for that. So your portfolios, we want to make sure they're positioned for success. I know it's a unique time with funding available through the SBA or eventually through the EPA and this Greenhouse Fund to make sure that our CDFIs are there at the forefront, at the table, preparing businesses. But I think it also goes to the climate preparedness as we transition in the Inflation Reduction Act and see these great tax credits available for small businesses that convert HVAC or who install or improve their windows, and this is for residential as well. We want to make sure that those contractors out there have the funding they need to grow with those investments for stronger resilience and clean energy. So I hope that there's multiple fronts that we can engage our CDFIs in as we prepare our nation for climate change.
That's great. That's great, Administrator. And one area that we started to talk about as well, disruption also comes in the form of economic slowdown. And the economy it has some level of volatility, and particularly the predictability of what the outlook will be for the future. And so there's I think we all are kind of planning in our, best sort of ways of the potential, at least, that there could be economic slowdown. And so I wanted to get your perspective of what a potential pullback could look like, or what the impact could be on small businesses, and what the SBA is doing, your perspective about preparing and working in partnership as well with CDFIs.
Yeah, well, I mean, the credit tightening has already been an impact, and so I think SBA's guaranteed products will become increasingly important in the marketplace as lenders will rely on that guarantee and the federal government de-risking the opportunity. But I do think it's small businesses. There's definite hesitancy. People are a little bit nervous of uncertainty always, and so while individually they project great things are happening, as a whole they're still concerned. I think consumers have not caught up yet. They're still spending, but we're seeing some slowdown, some pullback. So I do anticipate that businesses preparing for potential outcomes, potential loss of revenues, diversifying their revenues, streamlining operations to ensure that their bottom lines are strong is still a topic area that the SBA wants to lean into with its network of support advisors in the community, because our businesses do need to be prepared for the quick pivot, for the ability to adapt to any marketplace changes. In terms of our portfolios and strengthening the opportunities for credit for small businesses, we do think that the dual rule changes that we just deployed will be essential to ensuring that small businesses can still access capital. We want to recruit back those community banks out there who participated in PPP but don't participate on a regular basis with SBA. We want to expand our reach with CDFIs through the expansion of the Community Advantage Small Business Licensing Company program, so that we can ensure that a guaranteed product is available into more communities as credit tightens. And obviously are able to deploy those loan programs for refinancing wherever possible to put businesses in a better position with the potential of additional rate hikes in the future. I'm still hopeful though through it all, because we continue to see this small business boom. We continue to have good indicators coming out on the economy, so I know that we're all watching. I'm not an economist, so I will not predict where it'll turn out in the end, but I am continuously watching and hopeful, tracking in my portfolio to ensure that I get the capital out there.
Absolutely, and I think we're all hopeful and at least wanting to be optimistic, certainly. Let's talk a little bit about continuum of capital. You do have, and while the Community Advantage and other programs target those higher amounts, 250, 350, those areas. Let's talk about the microloan program. We have a lot of lenders here who participate in the program, and wondering if that's not only if it's on the radar, but I'm sure it is. And what are some perspectives that you want to share about any changes or advancements to the program that you'd like to make?
Well, I was pleased recently that my team was able to quickly deploy $14 million from previous COVID relief into the technical assistance grants to ensure that that money wasn't lost at rescissions. So that was a good, positive news. But on an ongoing basis, I hear regularly the concerns about the cap of 50,000, clearly, and 20,000. So while that is statutory, note that it's on our radar. We continue to share insights. We would like to see that dollar amount increase, and so I appreciate your sharing examples and stories out there. The other thing as well is that we want to modernize the microlending program as we do with our core 7A and 505 before. So on the horizon, we intend to invest in technology to streamline as much as possible the microlending program. So that is on our radar, and we continue to be committed to ensuring that the microlending program can be successful. We know those technical assistance grants are vital, and oftentimes, I view this as a starting point for lenders getting involved in the business space, to come into the SBA family and start providing these affordable, very small dollar loans into the community. And so it continues to be one of our shining lights of great programs deployed at the SBA, and I know Congress is equally committed to ensuring that this program continues.
Thank you for that, because we know there's an importance, right, in making sure that there's that continuum of capital, and knowing that small dollar lending is a priority as well at the SBA. Hearing that there are reforms, that it's on the radar, is certainly helpful, because you do have a lot of microloan lenders here. We only have a couple minutes left, and so just want to give you a little space to talk about if there are areas that we did not get to that are of importance, that are priority for you as we are not only embracing where we are now, but into the future as well. Or if you want to share a favorite recipe or favorite thing to do on the weekends or whatever it might be. But just space for you, Administrator, to talk about anything we may not have gotten to.
Yeah. Well, I am actually really excited about the transformations and the progress that we've been able to make at the SBA in ensuring that, more than $40 billion a year that we deploy gets into the hands of the communities we serve. And hopefully we start to increase that so that we get to, we have a $55 billion in financing available every year through all of our lending programs and investment programs. And I'd like to see us scale. And so I'm very hopeful that the regulatory reforms with the affiliation rule in combination as well with the small business licensing company moratorium lift will really shift the reach that we have at the SBA. It's not a good thing that we've seen a decline in small dollar lending over the past 10 years by 30%. It's not a good thing that we are not offering services through multiple lending partners to reach those underserved borrowers who are going straight online. And we want to transform for the future. And I think it's really about that customer experience. It's about and in the end, our economy, and making sure that our small businesses can continue to thrive. I'll end with just an example, because this is the type of business that many of you would fund. Jenny's Ice Cream in Ohio, it's one of my favorite SBA success stories, because she started with a $35,000 loan to open up her first bricks and mortar, and it was an SBA loan. She, of course, has been able to scale to 35 scoop shops, but she really credits the SBA an ability to get an affordable line of credit to not giving up ownership of her company, because she went to an investor first. And fortunately, that investor told her, go try to get an SBA loan, which is why she was able to grow with her values and her principles that she's embedded within the Jenny's Ice Cream brand. And so we need to replicate those Jenny's Ice Creams around the world and around the nation. And I'm hopeful that with these capital reforms, as well as the reforms on my SBIC program that we'll be rolling out, hopefully within the next 2 weeks, my final rule, that we will be able to fund the future Jenny's Ice Creams, and that we will be able to fund and ensure that the women and people of color, veterans, rural communities, low to moderate income communities can break down some of those capital access barriers and be able to achieve their American dream. So I just want to thank all of you for the work that you do every day helping SBA to achieve that goal and ensuring that your communities have a partner locally, a trusted partner who can connect them to capital. So thank you all for your work here.
Absolutely, and you do have Jenny's Ice Cream in the back for all of us, right?
I wish.
Yeah. Administrator, I want to thank you for taking the time. We know you have a busy agenda and a very healthy platform that you have been moving through the SBA and making sure that the agency is in partnership and works with all of us who are here. And we know that that's a reflection of the Biden-Harris administration and its commitment to not only CDFIs, but small businesses more broadly. So thank you for what you do day in and day out. Let's have a round of applause for the administrator.